Okay, welcome. Today I wanted to offer some reflections just about if you've been through trauma, the importance of being gentle, being kind, and also challenging the inner critic. Okay. So, I've just been reading Pete Walker's book, Complex PTSD, today, and it's just made me reflect that often as survivors of trauma, we can be very hard on ourselves. Why is that? Well, in my opinion, it is if we're in a situation which is traumatic, then often the inner critic comes on to keep us safe. So for me, I was at a boarding school, it was an unsafe environment. In order for me not to feel emotions, then the inner critic would come on and he would really attack me. You piece of shit, you're weak. And that would help squash the emotions. The problem is when I left school, it's followed me around until my 20s and really came out quite, viciously in the form of self-harm. That part would beat me up. So what I want to talk about today is to notice that you probably have a very virulent inner critic which beats you up if you've been through trauma, especially complex PTSD, complex trauma. And our work really, I'm just going to talk about one idea here with the inner critic, is to start challenging the inner diatribe, the kind of vicious attack. There was one time I was working corporately, probably when I was 30, post my monastic experience, and I could tell this inner voice, the critic, was going, I can't cope, there's too much work. And it was just repeating. And what Pete Walker talks about in this book, Complex PTSD, he says this thought substitution. So what I did is I wrote these ideas down, these thoughts down, I can't cope, and I changed it around. I'm coping wonderfully well. Or there's too much work, there's just the perfect amount of work. So as soon as you hear that inner dialogue start to come online, the invitation is then to find your piece of paper, start to substitute. Now, Pete Walker, in his book here, with the inner critic, he talks about, similar ideas. And he's got basically what he calls Perfectionist Attacks on page 170. And he's got these 9, 14 different ways. So if we got perfectionism, he gives like a list of mantras to use, words to use, and it's very similar. So it's like finding the things that you're attacking yourself over and just going, whoa. The second thing, I'll share another technique here. Another one is just to get some distance from your inner critic. Often it's almost like the inner critic is driving the car. We really want that part of you to be sat in the passenger seat, and the sovereign within you, the parent within you, to be driving. Yeah? And how we do that is just, we can take a physical step back, see that part of you, see it's very young, and what I do is I do a lot of EFT, matrix re-imprinting, so I imagine tapping on that younger self. I meet you, I see you, and I thank you for your opinions, and I'll take that on board, but I'll make my own decision. So we're stepping into a sovereign place rather than from the almost, on a psychological level, a neuroscience level, we talk about the short path or the long path. Basically what the short path is, we have a trigger and immediately we go into the amygdala, the limbic system. We're triggered. By stepping back, we give ourselves that space. We can move into the long path, which means we access those parts of the brain, the PFC, the prefrontal cortex, and the other more thinking parts to actually think our way through it, to get perspective. So just a couple of ideas there, be gentle. If you're giving yourself a hard time, that's not being gentle. You know, you've had enough trauma, you've had enough struggle already. Step back, love that part of you, and thought substitution. I'm doing wonderfully well, you know, and keep challenging yourself. And it's an ongoing process, but bless you. Any questions, please do let me know.